Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got an exciting show for you today. At least I hope we do. One of the things we're going to talk about right off the top here is about the border surge. You know, Biden calls it just normal, but even his own Department of Homeland Security is now saying that they're projecting as many as 800,000 people surging the border. And there are new caravans literally forming as we speak in Guatemala and Honduras to come up here. So, and we're going to show you some pretty shocking video that of the facilities and how overcrowded they are. But this thing is getting real very quickly. So we're going to update you on the border, and literally there seems to be no one in charge. And then if we have time, we're going to talk about the State Department. I guess they got money to burn, not that much money, and we'll get into that. But they've decided to create an Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, whatever the heck that means, within the State Department. So a new department within the State Department itself, and we'll expand on that. But before we go any further, I always have to mention our sponsors, because without our sponsors and our viewers, which are the most important, but without our sponsors, we don't have a show. So I always want to mention them and thank them. Our number one sponsor is BDU. That is short for Big Daddy Unlimited. And we come to you live every day, Monday through Friday, from the Big Daddy Unlimited studios in Gainesville, Florida. But if you look above the show, no matter when or where you're watching our video, whether it's live or taped, you will see a description of the show. Scroll down on that. You will see links to our sponsors. Big Daddy Unlimited, they are your Second Amendment headquarters, because you can get factory direct pricing on guns and ammunition. So if you're wondering what to do with that stimulus check, you can always go to Big Daddy Unlimited and stretch that stimulus check. I feel like one of them used car salesmen right now. I'm kind of feeling it. But they give you factory direct pricing delivered directly to your door, not only on guns and ammunition, but over 100,000 other items, including survival gear, tactical gear, protective wear, anything that has to do with the Second Amendment. You got it from Big Daddy Unlimited. And I call them your headquarters because not only do they furnish all those products, but they defend your Second Amendment on a daily basis. They're becoming a leader in that area. Then we have PatriotThreads.org, apparel with a purpose. They're a total fulfillment center. Remember the initials of our show, John Martin Talks, so JMT, for 20% off. They can help you with your charity events. They produce lovely shirts that are patriotic themed. And for instance, if you want to have a golf tournament and you want to raise money for a veterans cause, let's say, go to PatriotThreads.org. They'll design the shirt, help you determine what charity, if you need one to pick out or if you already have one, and they will ship stuff directly to whoever you want them to and help you get the profits to the charity of your choice. Check them out. Remember, JMT promo code for 20% off. Then we're partnered with Recoil TV through Big Daddy Unlimited as well. But Recoil TV, they have their own YouTube channel, Recoil TV. Of course, John Martin Talks. We have our own, and we need more subscribers and viewers there. Spell it all the way out, John Martin Talks. But Recoil TV is all about the Second Amendment. They have tons of videos, high-quality production videos of anything to do with the Second Amendment, including demonstrating the latest guns, ammunition, tactical gear, such as that. And we have a channel within their YouTube channel that we're archived on a daily basis, and we're grateful for that. All right, before we get into the actual main stories, I want to mention two stories that are garnering a tremendous amount, a tremendous amount of media attention. But I haven't really been talking about them and don't really plan to for different reasons. But number one is the Floyd case. The George Floyd case, of course, that the trial is underway right now as we speak with the principal officer, the one that had his knee on the gentleman's neck, and he's being charged with various accounts of murder. Well, the trial started this week. Now, the reason I'm not talking about it is because everybody else, first of all, is. And we already kind of know what's going to happen, don't we? I mean, I think we do. Now, I'm not saying we know if he's going to be found guilty or not, or some version or what counts, but we're going to burn. We're going to burn. The country is going to burn, especially some of our cities are going to burn. The only real question is how much. Now, I'm not downplaying the tragedy of the George Floyd case in any way, shape, or form. But if the police officer is found not guilty, we're going to burn a lot. And if he's found guilty, we're still going to burn quite a bit. And what really, I guess the best way to say is pisses me off, saddens me, is how there are many pundits, especially on the left, that seem to be rooting for, I mean, it's weird because on the one hand, they're calling for justice for George Floyd, which means they want the officer to be convicted. But on the other hand, it seems like they're actually hoping, and I hate to say this, but it seems like they're actually hoping for a not guilty thing so that they can burn more and basically cause more strife within this country. And so, I'm not going to add to that. Once it's over, or if there's some major break in the case, we will cover it. But I mean, it could happen anywhere. But if you live in some of these major cities, man, you better get prepared, because I believe we're going to burn one way or another. Then the other case that broke yesterday and is really getting a lot of attention is this deal with Matt Gaetz. I'm not going to get too deep into it. If you want to watch an interesting interview, watch. He was live last night on Tucker Carlson. Matt Gaetz was. It's pretty salacious. It's a New York Times story that broke about it. The facts of the case are pretty convoluted. Let me just take my bias right off the bat. I'm a huge fan of Representative Matt Gaetz from the great state of Florida. I think he's been a tremendous voice for our cause. If you believe in freedom, if you believe in the Constitution, I think he's done a tremendous job. I'm hoping that it all works out and that he's found not guilty of anything. He hasn't actually been accused of a crime, but we'll cover the case as it breaks. But as I say, I admit up front, I'm a great fan of Matt Gaetz, and I hope this is all to do about nothing, but only time will tell. And I will say, like Tucker Carlson said last night, that it was a pretty strange interview that he had with Representative Gaetz. So we'll keep you posted if there's anything actually to talk about. Now let's talk about something that is absolutely happening, literally as we're speaking, 24/7, and is only excuse me, seems to be getting worse. Got a little frog in my throat today. This is from the Daily Mail. Department of Homeland Security says double the number of migrants could cross the southern border this year. So they're basically saying 800,000. You might as well say 1 million, right? But the Department of Homeland Security says there could be twice as many migrants crossing the southern border. And this is just the ones they can document, so to speak. That doesn't mean how many people will slip through the cracks. So, if it's 800,000 officially, then it's probably well over 1 million. But it says the border this year, as smugglers continue to guide families across the Rio Grande and thousands make the journey north from Honduras and Guatemala. And as I said, there are caravans literally forming in Guatemala and Honduras as we speak. And they had quite a few pictures of them. But isn't Kamala Harris supposed to be to the rescue? President Harris, Vice President Harris, whatever her title is, Couch Cushion Harris, Where's My Willie Harris? I don't know. She's supposed to be the lead dog on this, right? Problem solved. I mean, didn't she say to earlier that she was basically hired to solve problems? I know Biden said that, and of course he said whatever she says and he says are one and the same, right? So it's officially the Biden-Harris administration. I don't know if Kamala wants this job. I suspect she doesn't, and there's proof here. The White House also said Kamala Harris will be using diplomacy with South and Central American countries to try and find the root cause of the crisis that has seen a surge in migrant children being taken into Border Patrol custody. Well, I got a radical idea for you, ladies and gentlemen. How about this? Excuse me. Sorry, I got a little frog in my throat today, more than usual. Maybe it's all the rain we've been getting. The pollen is absolutely god awful in our area right now. And I'm susceptible to it. But I got a radical idea. Why don't we just re-implement the Trump policy? All the things that he was doing, because he seemed to have the border pretty much under control. And I don't know why we don't just re-implement it. And they don't need to give President Trump any credit whatsoever. It's not that they were going to. They're going to blame him for everything, right? So why not just implement the policy, the stay in Mexico, those types of things, and just don't give Trump any credit. You can keep blaming him. I'll take that over. For instance, they're not giving Trump any credit for the vaccine, right? Warp speed and everything. They're taking all the credit for everything. So to me, I care enough about this country that I'd be willing to say, hey, you just quietly re-implement the policy that was working, the Donald Trump policy. Don't give him any credit. If you want to bash him, it's not fair, but go ahead and do it. I'd be willing to trade all of that and beat up on Donald Trump if it actually secured the borders again. To me, that's more important. But Biden, keep in mind, Joe Biden said at his presser the other day, and it's a little bit longer video than I normally play, but it also gives you a flavor of that press conference. But this is Joe Biden when he's asked about the surge at the border, the crisis, if you will, at the border. Also, listen to this reporter that asked the question. She is from PBS, and she literally throws, they talk about softball questions. In this case, as I say, they don't even throw softball questions at Joe. They throw like stuffed teddy bear questions. Listen to the question and how she frames it. But hear Biden's answer, and he's like deer in the headlights again. It encapsulates basically the entire press conference. But listen to Biden's answer. Check it
out. Okay. How about Yamiche?
Thanks so much, Mr. President. You've said over and over again that immigrants shouldn't come to this country right now. This isn't the time to come. That message is not being received. Instead, the perception of you that got you elected as a moral, decent man is the reason why a lot of immigrants are coming to this country and entrusting you with unaccompanied minors. How do you resolve that tension? And how are you choosing which families can stay and which can go, given the fact that even though with Title 42, there are some families that are staying? And is there a timeline for when we won't be seeing these overcrowded facilities run by CPB when it comes to unaccompanied minors?
Well, look, I guess I should be flattered. People are coming because I'm the nice guy. That's the reason why it's happening. That I'm a decent man, or however it's phrased. That, that's why they're coming, because Biden's a good guy. Truth of the matter is, nothing has changed. As many people came, 28% increase in children to the border in my administration, 31% in the last year in 2019 before the pandemic in the Trump administration. It happens every single solitary year. There is a significant increase in the number of people coming to the border in the winter months of January, February, March. It happens every year. In addition to that, there is and by the way, does anybody suggest that there was a 31% increase under Trump because he was a nice guy and he was doing good things at the border? That's not the reason they're coming. The reason they're coming is that it's the time they can travel with the least likelihood of dying on the way because of the heat in the desert, number one. Number two, they're coming because of the circumstances in country. In country. The way to deal with this problem, and I started to deal with it back when I was a United States Senator, Vice President, putting together a bipartisan plan of over $700 million to do with the root causes of why people are leaving. What did Trump do? He eliminated that funding. He didn't use it. He didn't do it. And in addition to that, what he did, he dismantled all the elements that exist to deal with what had been a problem and has been continued to be a problem for a long time.
I think that's good enough.
He, in fact,
that guy's just rambling. But first of all, everything he's saying there pretty much is a lie. There's always, now he is correct in the sense that there tends to be a level of surge during certain months. But to say that what's happening at the border is just usual, like it's just people just showing up to pick fruit or something, is ludicrous. And he says so many lies that he's not called on. He talks about Donald Trump cutting the funding that he put forward as vice president or whatever. What Donald Trump actually did, and Donald Trump himself admits that he cut the funding. But what he did was he said, okay, he found out that we're paying hundreds of millions of dollars to this triangle down there in Honduras and Guatemala, and I think it's El Salvador, but don't hold me to that. But he said, look, we're giving you hundreds of millions of dollars, and we're still getting a flood of people coming here. So he said, until you stop the flood of people coming out of your country, we're going to cut the money. And he cut the money. And lo and behold, he got a phone call literally the next day saying, hey, where's the money? And he said, well, until you start doing something besides putting it in your pocket and we're not going to give you money and take the people. That's not the way it's going to work. And lo and behold, they started actually keeping their people in check because they wanted the money. So Donald Trump actually did it like a businessman. But then Biden talks about this surge and how it's not unusual. The surge just in children alone, and we're going to talk more about that directly in a minute, is over twice as many as they basically called Donald Trump a tyrant. Remember in that press conference that we just played, Biden actually, with no proof whatsoever, without evidence, as they say, and no retort from the press, accused Donald Trump of murder from the White House. He said that Donald Trump allowed migrant children to starve to death at the border, which is a total salacious lie. And while we're at the lies, did you see where the Washington Post, no hardcore right-wing publication, it's really a liberal rag, actually came out and gave 4 Pinocchios, which I think is their highest level of lying, for Biden when he was talking about what passed in the election reform laws in Georgia. He said that the Georgia passed cutting the hours of voting down to 5 o'clock in the afternoon, which was going to hurt people, working people. First of all, on its surface, you knew that didn't make any sense because working people are more likely to vote for conservatives than non-working people. There's all kind of statistics to show that. So why in the world, unless they're just dumb as a post, would they do that? But the reality is, and the Washington Post, as I say, gave Biden 4 Pinocchios on that, is the Georgia law. Not only did it not do what Biden said and cut the voting to 5 o'clock, but by their own admission in the Washington Post, it expanded early voting. Now, I don't particularly like that, but that's a whole nother story. But Biden is just lying continuously. Now, we're not going to get into what the media actually accused Donald Trump of and everything, but they basically said he lied on a daily basis, right? Never really gave any evidence, but they called him out on the most minute things, like 2 scoops of ice cream versus 1, that kind of stuff. With Biden, he could literally say that, the world ended yesterday, even though I'm still here, and they wouldn't even call him to question. They go, well, what happened? Back to the story here, the conditions at the border are spiraling into public relations nightmare for the administration. New images released every day show children on rafts crossing the Rio Grande. Republicans have shared photos of kids sleeping on the floor of overcrowded shelters wrapped in silver foil blankets. Those, by the way, are the Obama blankets. And the government numbers predict more migrants are coming. Remember when they put, Trump is putting kids in cages. Never mind that not only did Obama build the cages, but they used pictures to bash Trump from 2014. The media got caught doing that. I'm going to play a video right now. Now, I got to give credit to Senator Ted Cruz from Texas and some other Republicans that went down there. They were able to get into one of these facilities that's holding these migrant children. Now, they're not literally in cages. They're in they're all bubble boys or whatever. They're in some kind of bubble. But I want you to look at all these little foil covers. Every one of them is covering at least one child, in some cases 2. And you tell me what you think of it. This is really happening. This was just like 2 days ago at the Mexican border. Check it out in the United States. That's probably good enough. And you hear essentially crickets from the media. Do you remember what? I mean, they basically said that Donald Trump was everything but a child of God for what he was supposedly doing. And Biden literally at his press conference the other day, when asked about when they were going to gain access to some of these facilities, he said, "Oh, we'll let you come in once we get our act together." In other words, they're not going to show you what's really happening there right now. And let me ask you, and I'm not trying to pick on these kids, but think about it. Did you see any social distancing there? Can you imagine working in that facility under COVID, knowing that there are reports that as many as 50%, but we know documented that basically 7% of the people tested, and that's just the ones they catch, are positive COVID? There's literally thousands of people coming across our border right now that are COVID infected. And yet, I mean, would that look like a petri dish of COVID to me? But, you know, it's no big deal. Leave them in cages, whatever. It is inhumane what is happening there. But who's to blame? The Biden administration. It's not the Trump administration. They need to re-implement the Trump administration's policies. A new caravan of migrants was also spotted in Honduras preparing to cross into Guatemala to start making their way north towards the United States. Literally, ladies and gentlemen, and I've said this before, I don't blame these people in a sense for trying to come here. I mean, our country is literally the field of dreams, you know, build it and they will come, like the movie. I mean, wouldn't you want, if you think about it, if you knew what our country, the benefits of being in our country were, and you were living in Guatemala dealing with MS-13 gang members and that kind of thing, you'd probably try to come here too. So I understand that to a point, but at some point you got to fight for your freedom because it's never been free. But Biden is literally, people are coming to the border with shirts saying, "Let us in, Joe, let us in." And oh, by the way, while we're at it, there's a picture right there. This was just last week at the border. And I saw a camp there in Mexico that literally was flying Biden flags up, man. But by the way, while we're at it, where's AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, crying at the border? You remember this? This is Ocasio-Cortez literally crying during the Trump administration at the border and bemoaning, and it's such an injustice, and they're drinking out of toilets, which was another lie, by the way. But where's Ocasio-Cortez now? Has she even been down there? I haven't seen any footage of her down there. She's certainly not hammering the Biden administration about what's going on down there. Neither are the rest of the Twitter twats, by the way. We hadn't heard much from them. That's what I call a squad. If you're new to the show, you might not have heard that. I think it's actually a more descriptive of what they really are. But where's all the crying people? And Kamala Harris, I was looking for this video. I couldn't find it because it's harder to find any negative video. You can find anything about Donald Trump that's negative. You can find 1,000 videos. Try to find something about Kamala Harris. It's not that easy to pull up. But there was a video that Kamala Harris, when she was Senator Harris, was across a river, I think it was, from a hilltop, yelling at what was happening at the facilities. Oh, they're basically saying they were executing children down there. I mean, she was literally calling Trump everything but a child of God. But now that she's actually been given the authority to be the border czar. She's not even planning. She still has no plans to go to the border. It's just crazy. Press Secretary Jen Paskai, I don't know how you say her name. I call her Circleback Gal, issued, I guess that's her Indian name, one who circles back. Press Secretary Jen Psaki issued what she called a clarification on Harris's role. See, Biden came out and says, I'm putting Kamala in charge and she's going to do it. Whatever she says, she speaks for me. That's what Biden said. But the press secretary clarification on Harris's role on Monday, saying there was confusion on what the vice president was tasked to do. Now, I can understand why there might be a bit of confusion. I mean, Biden certainly when you look at Biden, one word that does come up is confusion. But there's no confusion about Kamala Harris whatsoever. Kamala doesn't want to do it. She realizes that this is a political minefield, a political grenade, if you will, to go down there, because she's not, whatever you want to say about Kamala, and there's a lot you could say, but she's not really a dummy. Now, she's a cackling fool sometimes, but she's no dummy. And she realizes that under the current policy, there's no way they're going to stop any surges at the border. In fact, it's all part of the plan. Keep in mind that they want more vote. They don't look at those people as bum rushers of the border. They look at it as potential voters to vote them into perpetual power. So she doesn't want to solve the problem, but she knows that there is no solving the problem. It's going according to plan right now. They just got to find a way to keep the media from exposing it. So there's no confusion. She does not want to do it. But Jen Psaki, old Circleback, said the vice president of the United States, talking about, I guess, Kamala, I guess that's what she is, will be helping lead that effort, specifically the root causes, not the border. There is some confusion over that, she said at a press conference. So basically saying, go back to Honduras and Guatemala and give them, tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. That's the diplomacy. Come with big check. But like they did with Trump till he put a stop to it, they're still sending the people. It's not about solving the problem at the border because it's a plan. Like the pandemic, there's a plan. It's a manufactured crisis. I don't mean it's not real, but they manufactured the crisis so people could come in. And Simone Sanders, a spokesperson for Harris, told reporters last week that the vice president is not doing the border. She's not doing the border. I'm not doing the border. So it's just the way they put that. But dealing with the root causes of migration. She added that President Biden tasked Harris with taking on those diplomatic efforts. Now, if you go back and look at what he actually said, he was telling her to basically take over the entire equation down there. But she's too big. You remember Kamala Harris? This is an oldie but a goodie when she was just getting started as an actual 2020 candidate. The press, you want to see how biased the press is? You may or may not have seen this, but this is a clip of Kamala Harris on tour, so to speak, and she stops to do a little shopping, and the serious CNN reporters are actually helping her pick out clothes. Check it out.
A CNN reporter, I'm going to play it for you.
This taper is good for the girls. Right. Anything that's tapered. Right. Well, I want to do the DMR for him. I agree with you, right? Yes, I agree. Well,
you're slightly biased, though?
Yes. Okay. All right. And then the other side of the story.
This is from a CNN reporter.
Those were CNN reporters, not her homies or whatever, not her posse. Those were CNN, of course, I guess maybe they could be in that sense, that are supposed to be covering her in a serious way, and they're literally laughing and giggling and helping her try on clothes. This is the person that is probably less than a heartbeat away from being president, if she's not already. But Harris has not announced, think about this, this person is tasked by the president of the United States of America, Joe Biden. It does my heart no good to say it. I've been telling you, he's not actually the president. And I understand, I'm not even talking about voter mod. We don't say the F word here, or stopping the squeal. We only say things that rhyme. I'm simply saying that the guy that is currently in the Oval Office, in the case of Joe Biden, is not capable, mentally or physically capable, of actually being the president of the United States. So maybe that's why he realizes, and he put Kamala Harris in charge of it. But here she is, supposedly the czar of this. And listen to this on the article. Harris has not announced a trip to the border, has not given a public press interview about her new role. Made no comments about it. Her office said she has been briefed extensively on the Northern Triangle and Latin American situation and will soon speak with leaders in the region. Now, go back to what I said when she was a senator. She was an expert on the border. She couldn't stop talking about the border. She couldn't stop holding press conferences about Donald Trump and his failed administration. But now that she actually has the authority to do something, crickets, nothing. Republican Senator Blackburn from Tennessee, in a letter obtained by Fox News to DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas and ICE Acting Director Tay Johnson, is questioning the decision to award a $86.9 million contract to this NGO, which means non-governmental organization, called Endeavors. They're tied up in all this, for hotel rooms for migrants. So they contracted with this NGO. Now keep in mind, the big thing with these NGOs is, and I'm not saying that all of them are necessarily bad organizations, but here's a very key point. And I've said this before, but if I say it, it bears repeating, and you really need to understand this. If the federal government takes in an illegal migrant, illegal immigrant, and say transports them to Florida or North Carolina, which they're doing, by the way, that if that person stays in federal custody, so to speak, then they are required, they being the federal government, the Biden administration, is required by law to notify, say, Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, that, hey, we're bringing these people into your state. Maybe putting them, just letting them go. They may be putting them at a federal facility. But this is the key point. Once they are turned over to one of these NGOs, non-governmental organizations like this Endeavor that is contracted this hotel room, they don't have to report squat. So they can literally just let people go, or they can bust them somewhere, and they don't have to inform the communities they're coming into, the states, at all. So that's one of the reasons. Believe me, this is a planned situation why they turn them over to these NGOs. But this Endeavors is particularly interesting. So also keep in mind that while we're paying $86.9 million to house illegal immigrants in hotels, our National Guard troops that are still in D.C., by the way, are living in a parking garage. You know, what's your priorities? Do you think that they care about American citizens? I mean, that ought to tell you something right there. But Senator Blackburn said that in 2018, this Endeavors company that's got this contract brought in over $38 million in contributions and grants, and noted that an IRS filing showed that nearly $22 million, so way over half the money, or almost half of those contributions, went to salaries, not to actually doing anything. So, man, that's a lot of money. And when you hear how much it costs here in a minute, you might think like I do that you're in the wrong business. As the current contract stands, the cost to taxpayers for housing 1,200 now, migrant families for 6 months is about $71,000 per person. $71,000 per person for 6 months. How much does your housing cost? Blackburn wrote, for a family of 4, that amounts to a shocking $284,000, enough to buy a small house. I'm telling you, I'm in the wrong business, man. I need to start a home for illegal immigrants, man. $284,000. Maybe they could sponsor the show. That'd be all right. But let me just tell you, this is the thing, because I said earlier, and I meant it, that I don't blame these people for trying to come here up to a point. Because here's the thing that they need to understand. Freedom, and this is something we need to understand. We need to educate. I'm battling ignorance and apathy on a daily basis. And someone asked me, that's a hard full-time job. Yes, it is. But one of the things that we're ignorant and apathetic about is this idea that freedom is free, that somehow, because, you know, and a lot of people don't even know this, that our forefathers, and people still doing it that are in public service right now, are still paying the price for our freedom. Freedom has never been free. Oh, on a side note, I want to tell you, I want to share something very quickly with you. I was listening to my satellite radio coming in, and there was a caller to this talk show. It's a Breitbart show. I'll give him credit. And I'm not saying, I don't know if this person was telling the truth or not. I'm going to assume that they were. He was a black man because they were talking about some issues. He's a police officer in Philadelphia, and he was talking about preparing for what the mayhem may happen after the verdict in the George Floyd case. But in the context of talking about it, he said that currently, right as he was speaking in Philadelphia, and I say I have no way to verify this, but he was saying that, well, you think about this. What would you guess would be the number of people in the current class for a city of Philadelphia that are training to become police officers in Philadelphia? How many would you think? 100? 250? It's 10. The number is 10 according to this police officer. Think about that. If true, as the Democrats say, that's pretty scary. Because that doesn't even, and he also said that over the course of the next 4 years, they're going to have 900 officers that are in the retirement pool. They're getting the heck out. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just say this. One of the things I worry about with our country, because we have an all-volunteer military. I'm not knocking them. I appreciate them. We have public servants and police officers, firefighters, that kind of thing. What if we become a country that is not worth protecting? I said freedom's not free. What if one day our soldiers turn around and say, you know, it's just not worth it, man. It's not worth it for me to do that. I'm just not going to do it. I'm retiring now, or I'm not going to join. I'm not going to tell my kids to join. No legacy. What if we become a country that's not worth fighting for? And when it comes to our police officer, and I think you see this if, like I say, if these stats are true out of Philadelphia, what if we become, because man, our police officers, think about this with this George Floyd case, no matter how it turns out, and I'm not even talking about that police officer that actually did it, but our police officers are being labeled as basically, what did Maxine Waters just recently said? And she didn't just say white police officers. She said police officers that one of their primary jobs is to keep black people in their place. That coming from an elected leader that's been there since the 70s, man. Our police officers are being thrown under the bus. What if we become a nation that's not worth serving, not worth protecting? I mean, think about it. If you're a police officer, you look at your family, husband, wife, children, whatever, every day or night and think you might not be coming back. I fear for that, man. I really do. But I say all this to say this. Our freedom is paid for, has been paid for, and is currently being paid for at a very steep price. It has never been free, but we've always had people willing to do it. So ultimately, these people who are fleeing things that I'd probably run for too, if they want to be truly free, they're either going to have to pay a price here, or they really ought to go back and pay the price of freedom in their own countries. You know, maybe we should just pass out the pistols and turn them around. I don't know. You know, maybe we could get a discount. Maybe the government needs to contract with my sponsor, Big Daddy Unlimited, arm all these people and send them back to Guatemala. But this is going to destroy our country if it continues. If these statistics prove out to be true, this is going to destroy our country. And the Democrats, they don't care. And I'm not talking about all Democratic voters, but the people who have taken over the Democratic Party, all they're interested in is power. And they see what's happening at the border as potential voters. So that's why people ask me what we can do. It's pretty tough with what's happening right now. But one thing we can do as individuals is we need to educate people. We need to motivate people, and we need to activate people. And in cases of getting rid of some people, we need to get rid of and eliminate some people. I'm just talking about voting them out. But that's one of the main things that I'm trying to do in this show, is to educate, motivate, activate you. I need you to become, the JMT army and go out there and do this, man. Because most people either don't know, don't care, or just are misinformed. And you need to get them to watching shows like us, because these caravans, this thing is coming. It is real. It is absolutely real. All right, we're going to move on to our next story here. And this is a bizarre story to me, because it shows that they got money to burn on the one hand, but it also shows that this is all a farce. And I'll get into the difference here in just a minute. This is a Breitbart story. State Department to spend $2.5 million to create Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. This type of thing is happening across the Biden administration and all the departments because it's not about competence. It's about everything but that. And I'm not saying people of color or diversity or inclusion or sexuality, whatever you want to do. I'm not saying they're not competent people. What I'm saying is I don't give a hoot what the color of your skin is. I care about what your competency is. I don't care. Like I've said many times, I got a simple policy on some of this: open mind, closed behind. I don't care what you're doing in the privacy of your own home. Like, for instance, if I've got to go get in a plane and fly somewhere, I don't care but about one thing. The people that built the plane, that maintain the plane, that are flying the plane, I want them to be the most competent at their jobs, period. I could care less what color they are, what gender they are, what pronoun they use. I just want to know, can they fly that plane and land it? I'm kind of thinking about Mr. White, the comedian, where he talked about he was on a plane one time and the engine went out, one of the two engines, and the guy next to him says, well, how far can this plane fly on one engine? And he said, all the way to the crash site. So, I mean, all that really matters is who's flying the plane. Are they competent, man? Or whatever. I don't care. But the State Department has spent $2.5 million to create Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. The State Department on Tuesday notified Congress it intends to spend $2.5 million, not billion, not trillion, but million, to establish the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion with the Office of Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. It's like what they need is like the gay mob to attack the Chinese in Alaska the other day. Maybe if they had enough people of inclusion, we would have stood up to China. I doubt it. But according to the State Department documents, so here's the thing, $2.5 million, which is a total waste of money. That's not needed. But think about this, ladies and gentlemen. They're talking about creating a department with, and they say there's, I don't know, a dozen or so employees, but they have an undersecretary position that they're creating out of thin air that answers directly to the Secretary of State. Now, the reason I mention this, and this has nothing to do with the department itself, but let me just tell you, and I hate to say it, but it's just true, $2.5 million is peanuts. I mean, they shake more out of the couch cushions than that, right? Think about this. They can't even do the paperwork necessary to have a new emblem stamped on the letterhead and all that for $2.5 million. $2.5 million, man, they could piss that away in like a day, you know? So it's either a total farce or it's just virtue signaling. I think it's probably just the latter. They're just trying to make it a virtue signal because $2.5 million, and I'm not advocating, by the way, they spend more. I'm simply saying that, you know, $2.5 million when it comes to the State Department budget, let alone the federal budget in general. I mean, you know, man, they probably throw that just out the window. But here, you want to hear some real political BS speech. Listen to this next little couple paragraphs that describe what they're trying to do. The new office will provide a framework that transcends historical limitations and promotes boundless possibilities for all individuals, regardless of status, the documents say. Could you please tell me what that actually means? I mean, it's just a bunch of words strung together. And competence is not one of them. The new office to be established by October 1st will have 9 U.S. direct hire full-time employees, including the chief officer. The documents say the chief officer will have a rank equivalent to an assistant secretary and will report directly to the secretary. Sounds to me, beyond just virtue signaling, if this is real, if it's trying to address real problems, this is a classic solution looking for a problem. One of the new office's function will be to conduct the more political BS, conduct the coordination and collection of analysis of personal information aggregated by gender, race, ethnicity, disability, rank, and placement to support long-term planning for $2.5 million, man. It probably took them more than that to write that paragraph, according to the documents. But competence is not in there anywhere. Haven't we gotten to the point to where basically we should hire people that are the most competent to do their job? And all this other stuff is superfluous, man. I'm not saying, by the way, that there's not racism, that there's not homophobia or whatever. But let me just tell you, you're never going to legislate what is in a person's heart. It is not possible. So yes, individuals, maybe even groups are racist, but systemic racism doesn't exist in our government anymore. It just doesn't. And all that talk of stuff about that is simply to try. You know that Dyson fellow? I just was listening to this on the way, getting back to this George Floyd real quick. He literally said, and I'm not talking about the astronomer, I'm talking about the guy that's on like MSNBC all the time. Or it might be Tyson. I might got the name wrong. But you'll know he's a fast talker. He said that Black America was on trial for George Floyd, and that everybody, when they look at George Floyd, if you're a Black American, it's either your brother, your mother, your father, your sister, your cousin, your aunt. He listed all these things. Now, I'd love for you to chime in on Facebook or on our YouTube channel. Tell me, if you're a Black American, does George Floyd, and I'm not condoning what happened up there. I'm simply asking, does he represent you? Do you really feel like you're on trial? Because I can tell you who really is on trial. Police officers everywhere, because they're going to paint them with that. But, I'll close the show with this. Are we doomed? I've been asking this question. Here it says the establishment of the office follows similar efforts in the Pentagon. In February, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, who Biden couldn't even remember, that guy that I hired to do that thing over there, that guy, appointed Bishop Garrison as the senior advisor for human capital, diversity, and equity and inclusion. And this guy is a Trump basher, called him Donald Trump a Nazi, by the way. But I ask, are we doomed? I would rather have one dude like this, I call him Tank Man, from Tiananmen Square. He's probably dead or in some gulag in China somewhere. But I'd rather have one person with the courage of that guy. I don't care what his diversity is. I don't care what color he is, whether he's a guy or a gal or somewhere in between. We need more people with courage like that. But anyway, it's just, to me, are we doomed? It certainly seems that way. But that's why I battle ignorance and apathy daily. I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go directly to our Facebook pages, like them and share it with those. Remember our sponsors. We need you to check them out. We're grateful. Share what we're doing as far and wide as possible. I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. Boy, we better pray for this country, because she deserves it and needs it now more than ever. But above all else, like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.